I have a problem when it comes to salted caramel.
Are they awesome? Are they really good? I'm pretty
really
excited. Good. This is going to be a first time reaction with the. They're called High Soft. Are they just High Chews?
It's like the same company.
Yeah, okay. High Soft caramels, salted caramel chews. Yeah, that's going to be a win. That's also going to be really hard to eat and do reactions to, because I'm going to want to keep eating them, but I can't talk at all with that in my mouth. That is crazy. It's just sticking to everything. .307 Reacts. I am Matt. That is Chris.
Yo.
Guess what? We're on Patreon. If you didn't know that, we do have a Patreon account. It's over at patreon.com. It's over there. /307 Reacts. Same thing here as here on YouTube. It's a $5 a month subscription, and you get access to all sorts of videos. I think we're coming up on like 40 videos. We might have 40 videos
Finally.
over there. Finally. And we are working very diligently on putting out new content as frequently as we can over there. So if you'd like to help us out, that goes directly to improving the studio and making improvements to the content around here, buying gear, bringing in bands, buying music equipment, things like that, upgrading our monitors, cameras, stuff like that. So if you'd like to help us out, head over to Patreon, help us out there. That's I just wanted to do a quick Patreon thing. Anyways, on the screen in front of us, it's our boy Nick, the fat electrician. The video is titled "Government Helps by Destroying 700,000 Working Cars, Cash for Clunkers." Yeah. Now, I was just telling Chris before this episode, before he got here, I was just kind of perusing YouTube, watching stuff while I was setting things up. This video came up on like our YouTube page. You just type in YouTube and your account. It came up on our page. It was between this one and a Brandon Ferris episode. And I was like, well, I'll watch some Brandon Ferris because it's a little more mindless. I was going to start watching this one. And then he got here and I looked in the watch later and it was the first one on there. And I was like, you know what? It's a good thing I didn't start watching that one.
Right.
So I'm very excited to watch this because the Cash for Clunkers thing has been around for a long time, hasn't it?
At least, it started with the Obama administration.
Is that what it was?
Yep.
Okay, so a while. 10 years, something like that? 12?
Somehow related to emissions. I don't know what they're, because I heard so many things back and forth.
Okay.
Like, we're going to pay people to get rid of their old cars because they're gas-guzzling sluts, okay? And the government can't have that. So what they would do is they would go, oh, hey, turn your car into this program, and then they would have technicians, okay, who would put this additive into the oil and let it run until it died.
Oh,
now,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
So a lot of people, what they would do, and then after it died, they would crush the car and recycle it. And
yeah, sure.
So, here's my feelings on this, okay? There does come a time when you have to let a car go.
Very true.
You let the struts go too long. The oil pan has a leak. You have an axle seal that has a leak.
91 Corolla.
Valve covers are leaking.
91 Corolla.
You need a CV axle shaft.
91
Your
Corolla.
joints are busted. Okay, your rear diff has a bearing going bad.
It's just falling apart.
And it's like you could spend $7,000 fixing it, but the car's only worth $3,000. Okay, you got to, it just makes sense.
Don't lie to me. Every customer you have at Horizon is that guy.
Yeah.
Every customer you have.
Every single guy. It's crazy.
I'm going to drive it to Venezuela, so just go ahead and put $9,000 into my 81 Toyota.
That Toyota going to have them at 50 cal in the back of it, guaranteed, okay?
Good Lord, dude. So
anyway, here's the thing, though. There's a buyer for every car, okay?
There really is.
Because the car's not worth that much to you, and it's like, you just drive the thing to work every day. You're not... maybe you have some sentimental attachment. Oh, we've had this car for 10 years and my kids grew up in this car. Like, okay, but like there's a guy out there who will buy this car, strip the whole thing down and build race cars with it. Okay.
True.
Or there's a guy who's like, man, I really love these Volkswagen, Jettas, and I would love to just restore it. There's always that guy out there.
Yep.
Now, if you sell your car to the government to crush it, that car is no longer there for that guy.
Yep.
So the used car market kind of takes there's nothing to buy because it's all going into this program.
Yeah.
So there's some ups and downs. You get some old beat up clunkers off the road that really don't need to be on the road. That's cool. But then you also have these guys who want to restore these old cars and they can't because they're And the ones that are
that's a
out
good
there
point.
because there's a shortage
Yeah.
are way expensive. Like square body
Right.
Chevys used to be $1,500.
Yeah, yeah.
Now it's like $5,000. Thing doesn't have a motor or transmission. The seats rotted out. Like
Oh, okay. That's a good point. All right, cool. Well, that's good knowledge. That's good knowledge to have.
that's my take as a mechanic on that. Let's hear what he has
Let's hear
to
what
say.
Nick has to say. Like, comment, and subscribe. Sorry for the long intro. This could end up being an hour-long video. I'm not 100% sure. I know it's 12
see.
minutes, and someone's going to get in the comments and be like, you turned a 12-minute video into a 40-minute video. We're a reaction channel.
We do that.
pause during our reactions, and we like to analyze things as we go, so that's just what we do, because we can't remember stuff till the end of the video. So with that said, let's go, shall we?
get it.
All right.
Okay, this is becoming a pattern at this point. Every single time I find a truck that I want, it's borderline impossible to get, and after 5 seconds of research, I find out that the United States government is directly responsible. Today we're talking about the Cars Act, aka Cash for Clunkers. Okay, I'm already upset, so here's how we got here. I originally wanted a
already
Toyota
upset.
Champs, like this $15,000 super cheap Toyota
Yes.
truck that you can buy and just go do truck stuff with, okay? It's
want
very
one
cheap.
too.
It does what it's supposed to do. It's what I wanted. So I hopped on Google and was like, hey, when are these going to get released in America? Because I'm going to buy one. Oh, turns out they're not getting released in America. Why not? The same reason I can't get the Toyota Hilux, the other truck that I've wanted literally forever. And it's because in the 1960s, Germany was buying too much American poultry, so they put a tariff on American chickens, to which the American president, Lyndon B. Johnson, got upset. So he retaliated by putting a tariff on small cargo vehicles, aka small trucks. This is referred to as the chicken tax. I did a whole video on it. Okay, but the abbreviated version
That's
is
a
I don't get to buy the truck I want
summarization.
because of Lyndon B. Johnson and chickens 80 years ago. So I'm like, okay, you know what? It's fine. There's other trucks in the world. I'm going to go ahead. I'm just going to pick another cool truck. To me, I'll just get an older American truck that's already here. It'll be cheap. It'll be great. And right away, I knew exactly what truck I wanted. I wanted the truck that was new when I was a kid, when I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, because that truck was new when I was a kid. So it's going to be new to me for the rest of my life. It's
go.
just going
Right,
to feel that
right.
way regardless of how old it gets. And that truck to me is a 4th gen GMC, specifically the Chevy version, the K1500.
I have one.
Yeah, I was going to say, you have one of those.
That's
Yeah.
a trench gun.
Mine's a
whatever.
C1500, but
Thank you.
the Chevy
Oh, do you want this
Cheyenne.
watch?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did actually.
Okay. I don't know what it is, but whatever.
Thanks, love you.
Whatever.
This video
He
is brought
says
to you by
smile.
Delete Me. Super straightforward business. You give them money, they turn around and they make sure the data brokers on the internet are not selling your personal information. Simply put, pretty much any time
This is
you go
pretty
on the
cool, by the
internet
way.
and
I
you fill
like
out your
this.
personal information and you check that little box that says, I agree to the terms of service, those terms more than likely mean that they're collecting your personal data. They turn around and they sell that data to data brokers. And then
I got to say, I'm curious to know if Microsoft came after Delete Me for their logo usage. Because, I mean,
It's not the same.
it's not. You're right. But, boy... I bet they threw a stink about that for a little while. You know, I can imagine there was at least one.
They probably
cease and
went
desist
over
letter.
of like, oh well, it's likeness.
Exactly.
They're
Yep.
they're like
The
it's
likeness-
not the same, so whatever.
And if you don't know what we're talking, that looks very similar to an Xbox logo.
Yeah.
Like make it green and 3D eyes it, make it 3D-ish, and you're pretty much there. That's pretty
Yeah.
close. So I just saw that and was like, whoa! I bet Microsoft. Like I said, I bet there was at least one cease and desist letter. I bet there was at least one for the likeness of it, you know? And then it was just like, well...
And Delete Me was like, would you please delete me from here?
Yeah, Delete Me was like, well, that's why we have lawyers on retainer, and they're going to tell you we're allowed to use this because it's not the same thing, and yeah, similarity doesn't go anywhere. So let's go.
Yep.
Just talk to every song that's ever been recorded in history ever, because they're all a likeness to another song. That's just how it works.
the data brokers sell it to whoever. The good news is these data brokers are legally required to get rid of your information and stop selling it if you ask them to. The hard part is figuring out which data brokers have your info and then filling out all the paperwork to get them to stop selling it. And that's where Delete Me comes in. Once you're using their service, they go through, they check all the data brokers for your personal information, and if they have it, they go ahead and they fill out all the paperwork to have that information taken down automatically. After that, they continue to keep checking and rechecking all these data brokers in case they somehow acquire your information again and start selling it again and make sure that doesn't happen. So if privacy sounds pretty cool to you, go ahead and check out Delete Me. I'll have a link and a discount code down below. Let's get back to the video. Sorry, anyways, I started looking for a K1500, borderline impossible to find one in good condition. Okay, I finally tracked one down. It's at a car dealership. It's mint. It's
Dang.
got like 25,000 miles.
What?
It's perfect. It's spotless. I want it. Problem, it's like almost $30,000 for a 1998 K1500. So I call the dealership and I'm like, the fuck? Is it like a drag car? Does it have a different engine in it? What the fuck is going on with this truck? Like, no, it's completely stock K1500, 25,000 miles, perfect condition. We want a ton of money for it. And I'm like, why? And the owner of the dealership is like, well, The government crushed all of them, so you're never going to find this truck in good condition.
God,
so
dude.
naturally, I did what I always do. I went home, started looking into it, went down the rabbit hole. Here's what happened. It all started in 2008 when the American housing market crashed. How did the housing market crash? Well, in the years leading up to this, the American government decided, hey, owning a home is part of the American dream. More people should own homes. You know what we should do? We should go put a bunch of pressure on U.S. banks to give loans to people that they know can't afford homes and just do it anyways. This is called a subprime mortgage, and the banks were giving out a ton of them for the years leading up to 2008. 2008 rolls around, all the people that bought houses they couldn't afford get foreclosed on, ruins the entire housing market, the entire U.S. economy crashes. And when the economy crashes, people don't have a lot of extra money, and when people don't have a lot of extra money, guess what they're not doing? Buying brand new cars. But it's okay.
Yep.
We live in a capitalist society, and what happens when supply remains the same and demand goes down? The prices also go down. The market will regulate and fix itself, right? No, because the government's going to step in and they're going to they're going to help.
I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
So the United States government, in its infinite wisdom, comes out with the CARS Act, aka Cash for Clunkers, and they're going to try to prop up the automotive industry as a way to stimulate the economy. And then, as a little side quest, they're also going to try to save the environment at the same time. So the government allocates $3 billion towards this program, and that $3 billion is going to be spent overpaying for people's used cars. So how this works is anybody that's going to buy a new car, like a Prius or a Camry or a Civic, can trade in their old car, and the government is going to be willing to subsidize paying you between $3,500 and $4,500, even if that's way more than your car is actually worth.
Dang,
the only stipulations are the car
crazy.
has to be running. It has to be a good, reliable vehicle. It has to get 18 miles to the gallon or less, and it has to be registered to you for at least a year. So basically, the government is only
A gas guzzling slut.
Yep, that's what, you were saying
less,
that.
and it has to be registered to you for at least a year. So basically, the government is only interested in buying perfectly good used cars in running condition. And $3 billion divided by somewhere between $3,500 and $4,500 per car ends up being about 700,000 cars that the United States government gets their hands on, which raises the question, what is the United States government gonna do with 700,000 perfectly good running cars?
Put them under a mountain with cheese.
I mean,
They did this with the dairy farmers, okay, and learned nothing.
they just history repeats itself.
Yes.
Right. When he says that, I always try to put things into perspective.
Yeah.
So when he says 700,000 cars, first thing that comes to my mind is trying to imagine a parking lot with 700,000 spaces in it. Just the spaces. An empty parking lot with
even
700,000 spaces.
Strip it down. 700.
Exactly. Like
It's
and my brain can't compute that. Then slowly my brain starts to fill in those spaces with cars. And just random, like he said, good running used cars. And like
now I should specify, okay, good running means it runs and it drives. Like
yeah, it can be leaking shit. I mean, it can have
a lot of the vehicles that got sent to that were like had busted axles or a
Subaru will run with a rod knock.
Yeah.
I mean, it will still run.
It is a good running.
It just goes when you go down the road, but it does run. So I mean, yeah. What are the
700,000? That is
like I just try and imagine that, and I can't. My brain can't even picture the parking lot that they would go in. What would you? How? Yeah, like what? And what are they going to do with 700,000 cars? Well, I think we all know, but let's find out.
About 700,000 cars that the United States government gets their hands on, which raises the question, what is the United States government gonna do with 700,000 perfectly good running cars?
Blow it the f*** up!
Okay, I mean, I'm not very bright, I'm just spitballing, but here's what I would do. I would maybe auction off the 700,000 cars so that 700,000 Americans could get a good deal on a running, reliable vehicle so they could make it to work and participate in the economy to help prop up the economy that the U.S. government just crashed. But we gotta remember the big picture here, right? Because the U.S. government also is trying to save the environment, and these 700,000 cars get less than 18 miles per gallon, so there's only one thing we can do. We gotta fucking destroy them. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. The second your car gets traded into a dealership, that dealership is legally required to drain all the oil out of the engine, pour a specialty chemical inside of it, put it in park, and have a mechanic hold the gas pedal down until that specialty chemical turns into glass in the engine and blows up the entire thing, and then they're going to crush it and turn it into garbage. You know,
Damn,
as
dude.
one last fuck you to the environment right before we save it.
Shut the f*** up, all right?
Okay, I'm just gonna level with you. I'm like in awe at this point at how horrible this idea was. There's so many layers of stupidity compounded within itself. I don't even know how to continue the video. The government is like King Midas, but instead of everything they touch turning to gold, it just turns to shit. So I guess we'll just make sure that we're all on the same page.
He has a great point. Just auction the cars off so people can get reliable cars at a cheap price.
Reliable being used, loose, but you know, they. Like I said, there's a buyer out there for every car.
The thing about auctioning off cars is like people, you know, it's people kind of know what they're getting into. Like, yeah, this car might have some issues, but you're getting it at an auction price, so there's a chance you could get it for a tenth of what it would go for used on a lot. You know what I mean? Like, and you saving that money on buying it at the auction gives you the money in your pocket to fix whatever problems maybe going on with it. Maybe it needs a new engine. But back in the day, back in 2008, 2009, 10 or whatever, you could get a used engine for a reasonable price. Like, it wasn't crazy. You know, it wasn't super. I mean, nowadays you look at the cost of a replacement engine.
You're like $7,000 installed, $7,000 to $8,000.
Just the transmission on my car. Chris showed me the other day. It's like $9,000 for a transmission. Just the transmission. Then you got to have a dude put it in. Then you got to reprogram a bunch of shit because it's all electronic, censored CVT shit. And so, dude, you're talking probably like the value of my car sitting in the parking lot just in the transmission, just in getting power to the wheels. That's
crazy.
It's unbelievable. So like, even back in the day, if you were to buy one of these cars, you could get an engine for fairly cheap and just swap out whatever was wrong with it. You know, and most of the time, I'm sure it probably didn't need an entire engine replacement. It was probably like
most of the time it's like leaks.
You need valve cover gaskets. You need an oil pan gasket. You need like
a
small things. Some spark plug seals, whatever. You know, fuel injector, this, that, or what. Nothing crazy. Just something you have to spend a couple $100 on, and then it's taken care of.
This Dodge that I bought was one of these like cars that they let a whole bunch of little things go for a long time. All those little things added up to a big bill.
Sure, yeah.
And I was like, listen, I'll take this off your hands because, like, the labor with me doing it is free. It just costs me my time.
Yep.
And then the parts are like the spark plugs are like $7 a piece.
Yeah.
The clutch kit was like $130. But like the labor is what gets super expensive. You let all those little things go.
Yep.
It turns into a massive bill.
It turns from having to pay like an hour or two in labor to replace one part to having to pay 10 hours of labor to replace everything that's going on with this thing. And then as again, we're talking about inflation and stuff, as you wait, time goes on, parts get more and more expensive, they get harder to find, this, that, and the other, and before you know it, it's like you've got thousands of dollars worth of stuff to have to replace in this car, plus thousands of dollars to pay the mechanic to fix all the things. Yeah, so it's way easier to just pay a couple $100 at a time and get something replaced. Like, that's literally every time something happens with my car, I'm like, Chris, what can we throw a part in this? And like, it costs me a couple $100 every time we have to do something, but it's like, if I waited and just let all that, first of all, it will destroy your car over time. Don't let your CV axles go. It's horrible. It's awful. Don't do it. It'll ruin so many things around it. Just get it replaced right away. And it just ends up costing more money in the long run. So auctioning these cars off, great idea, dude. Like, why not just do it that way? Why put some weird chemical in there that crystallizes everything and then destroys the engine? An engine that you could pull out and auction off as well. You don't even have to auction the car. You could auction the engine. Like,
resell the engine.
Resell
seats, door handles.
Auto shops are constantly looking for used engines that they can either part out or just full replace. Constantly.
I'll tell you, body shops are the big one, right? And here's the reason, like, you get a 2015 vehicle in a body shop, they'll tell you, well, due to the age of the vehicle, you know, you like the age of it. It's a 2015. Like, sure, that was like
it's
10 years ago,
years
but
old,
like, okay. But the thing is like interior pieces, body panels and trims, like they don't build those pieces new anymore.
That makes sense, yeah.
The only place you're going to find them is at a junkyard. Like, so all these cars that were involved in the Cash for Clunkers get even harder to find because, like, I have a Cadillac right now that I needed a shifter for. Could not find one in decent condition. I ended up, I told the guy, I was like, there's one on eBay. It looks like it has been through hell and back. It is stained. It's black. It looks ugly as hell. Supposedly it works. And guess what? $300 is what they wanted.
God.
But it was the only one. It was the only one we could find.
That's crazy.
And the guy's like, yeah, do it. Okay, so we get it. Sure enough, it works. It looks like shit, but it was like the only one in the country we could find.
Man, and that's the shitty part is that you have to settle. You can't just have your pick of the litter. It's like, this is it. This is what we got to do. This is the part. This is what we have to do with this. Like,
so
I guess
even if they took those cars, stripped them, and just here's a door panel for sale.
I guess
here's
that
a
makes
window
sense
for
with
sale,
my
here's a shifter.
with that last Subaru that I owned, that little WRX that I owned with the turbo mount on there. 'Cause
Yeah.
you guys could not get one of those. You were like,
couldn't
they
get
don't
one.
have them.
Yeah.
Like they like don't exist. And so I went on eBay and I found a used one that some guy had, and I was like, I think this is the part, and brought it to you, and you guys were like, that'll work. Yeah,
That'll
that's
work, yeah.
Like, but even that was like hard to find that on eBay, and it was a used one. It didn't come in the label. It was in the package. It was just like one that some guy probably had taken off of his
Here's
for
a
a
bracket.
rebuild or something. Yeah, and it was a bracket. Like, that makes sense now that I think about it. Crazy.
Yeah.
All right, I'll just auction the cars. Just do it.
Instead of everything they touch turning to gold, it just turns to shit. So I guess we'll just make sure that we're all on the same page at this point, okay? In 2008, the United States government is responsible for crashing the U.S. economy, and in 2009, in order to fix it, they said, hey, you know what we should do? Let's take $3 billion that we've extracted from the people whose lives are already suffering. We're going to take that $3 billion and we're going to use it to have a fucking used car genocide where we destroy 700,000 perfectly operational vehicles. And you're never going to guess which vehicle cracked the top 10 for the most crushed by the U.S.
Oh, here it
government.
comes.
That's right, the Chevy K1500.
I'm upset.
You know what? Actually, it's fine. I'm sure this was well worth it, and I'm sure that we saved the environment. Let's just go ahead and check the stats. According to the University of
Every time he
Michigan,
pulls
the
out that
average
notebook, dude.
miles per gallon of the average American vehicle went up a total of 0.7 miles per gallon.
Oh my
okay,
God.
that's not a lot.
Let's
That's not how much
go.
it actually saved the environment, right? I mean, that's what actually matters. How much CO2 did we prevent from going into the atmosphere, right? Okay. The CARS program prevented 4.4 million metric tons of CO2 from entering the atmosphere. That's a big fucking number. That's probably a good thing, right? That accounts for approximately 0.4% of U.S. emissions. You know what?
Wow. He just. Wow, dude.
Okay, look, I'm not a super intelligent guy. I'm wearing a camouflage hat and a tank top, and I live in a cornfield, okay? But hear me out. I feel like every vehicle manufactured has what I'm going to describe as a fossil fuel overhead, okay? Because the manufacturing plant where the car is made, it's got to have power. You get that by burning coal and other fossil fuels, right? So some of it goes there. Then all the workers have to drive their cars to the manufacturing plant to be able to build it, and their cars burn fossil fuels. And then if the manufacturing plant is, I don't know, in Japan, where they manufacture the Prius, the Civic, and the Camry, which were the most sold cars under the Cash for Clunkers program, you gotta ship the car across the fucking ocean using fossil fuels to get it here, okay? Maybe destroying all those cars prematurely before you squeezed all the life out of them wasn't worth the 0.4% you saved on emissions overall. Oh yeah, well at least the United States government propped up the auto industry, because without those sales, they probably would have had to lay off a bunch of American auto workers. But did you not just listen to what I just said? The top 3 cars sold during the Cash for Clunkers program were the Honda Civic, the Toyota Prius, and the Toyota Camry, okay? Most of those are made over in Japan. There's a couple that are made here in America, depending on the trim model. Overall, across the entire program, only 44% of the cars purchased under Cash for Clunkers were actually made in America. So essentially what you've done is take $3 billion from the American taxpayers and give it to foreign auto manufacturers. Secondly, in the months following the Cash for Clunkers program, there were way less car sales than there should have been according to the previous year's data, meaning Cash for Clunkers didn't increase the number of car sales, it just moved them from one month to another. So since there weren't actually any more cars sold during Cash for Clunkers, that means that the US is now down 700,000 cars, right? And what happens when supply lowers and demand remains the same? That's right, prices go up. The price of a used car on average went up about $2,000 after Cash for Clunkers.
What? This is the worst.
So essentially, the United States government has taken $3 billion, given it to foreign auto manufacturers so that they can subsidize rich people buying new Priuses while poor people have to pay $2,000 more for their used car. Fucking great job. Way to go. But wait, it gets even worse, because a lot of the people that bought new cars during Cash for Clunkers shouldn't have really bought new cars. They were just overly incentivized to do it because the government was subsidizing it, right? Where the fuck are my notes? According to CNW research, buyers that bought during Cash for Clunkers experienced 2 times the normal repossession rate and 5 times the amount of buyer's remorse.
It's like a big, fat, angry slob spending money it doesn't have on crap it doesn't need. Me want more pointless social programs. Yummy, yummy, yum.
Okay, I'm calm. Just so we're all.
First of all, Ron Swanson is a hero.
Amazing.
Okay, Nick Offerman, one of the greatest actors maybe of all time. He's incredible. He's an amazing comedian. Second of all, 2008, 2009. Also, when the United States introduced a shitload of emissions laws, and they changed all their emissions laws, right?
2007 was the first year it went into effect.
And then 2008 and 2009 were when they started manufacturing cars to adhere to these emissions laws.
Well, they had to adhere. If it was built early 2007, it didn't have to. If it was built after, I believe it was June or July. If it was produced June or July of 2007, it had to adhere.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of those cars that were manufactured during that time were piles of shit.
Oh, absolutely.
The engines,
every single one of them.
The engines went to shit. Let me bring you back to my...
Unless you were buying a Honda, a Toyota, or a Mitsubishi, or
something made in Japan. And sent
because
over.
they didn't have to change anything for their emissions. They were already meeting the standard.
Yeah, they were already
the
doing the thing. Right, that makes
like,
sense. Let me take you back to that WRX that we were talking about earlier, 2008. And after buying that car, after unknowingly buying that car, just because the Need for Speed kid in me, the 14-year-old Need for Speed kid, saw it, and drove it once, and it went, and I was like, oh yeah, this is my car now. I'm going to buy this. Knew nothing about them. Afterwards, once I started running into problems, first problem I ran into, the turbo blew up on me, and got really lucky that it didn't blow up the rest of the engine like they normally do, but the turbo blew up on me. That's when I started looking into the year, the make, and all of the problems associated with that car. And basically 2008 was the turning point for that vehicle, when they went from 2007, where the WRX was actually pretty badass, to 2008, where it went to complete shit for 4 years. 2008 to 2012, if you own a 2008 to 2012 WRX, I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'm really sorry. It's even worse if you own the naturally aspirated.
I think the 2005 and 2006, in my opinion, were the best ones.
Dude, the like
STIs
04
were like badass.
Dude, the like 04 to 07 era for the WRX, minty baby, so minty. And then the 2008 to the 2012, even into the 13s, 14s, some of them, it was just like, what has happened? It was garbage.
If you're looking at a diesel truck, okay, buy used. Anything 2006 and older is good.
Good to go.
As long as it's had, the proper maintenance records. It's probably had a set of injectors already done. It's already had the high pressure fuel pump
glow
done.
plugs.
It's had the oil pump done.
I don't know.
Glow plugs.
I know that's a common term.
If it's a Ford, it's had like 3 or 4 turbos on it. Okay. But like, do not buy a diesel that's 2007 or newer. Now, the exception to this is the Duramax LBZ.
Okay.
If you get the early 2007, that was the best motor they ever made.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty easy to tune those for some horsepower. Everybody loves them. They're super hard to find. But like the early model 2007 was like Chevy's last, like, hey, check out what we can do with this diesel. And then everybody bought 2007s. But some of them got the early models, which was great, the LBZ, and then you got the LM, or is it the LLY or the LMY, which is the LBZ that's been choked by emissions and EGR coolers and DEF and like all of this.
See? That late 2007, early 2008 shit, it was what a calamity for the automotive industry in America. And I get it. I understand. We should try to save it. We should try to cut back on emissions. We should for the carbon footprint and for for the ozone and things like that. I get it, but too much of something is never can be a horrible thing, right? Too much of something is never a good thing. Jordan
Peterson has brought up the point over and over and over again, like making energy more expensive to try to reduce the use of energy. Number one, makes people's lives miserable. Like, poor people can no longer afford heat in their homes. Like, he was saying, they did a study, right? They said, if we turn down the temperature in our homes by 3 degrees, we could save all this, like, whatever, right? And so they did a study, and they're like, well, that 3-degree difference in somebody who's older that has, like, a particular disease or whatever the case may be, it was estimated that 1.3 billion people worldwide would die. degrees.
Just from that 3 degrees change.
3 degrees.
Well, I mean, look at the change in how the world, the heat of the globe kills off all these different species. The sea level rises or the temperature in the ocean rises like 2 degrees, and all of a sudden you start losing all these microspecies and things like that kill off these other species because then those die and they have nothing to feed on, and so it makes sense with humans.
3 degrees difference. So his solution is, if you make energy as affordable as possible, as easy to access as you possibly can, people are less worried about staying warm, getting food in their bellies. I mean, they can look around the world around them and start inventing and coming up with ideas and hey, I see this thing over here that's happening in our city. It's full of shit. There's trash all over the streets. Maybe I should start a company to just kind of clean this stuff up.
All of a sudden that
you're not in survival mode anymore.
All of a sudden, that extra 1 cent tax incentive that your government wants you to contribute to doesn't seem like such a bad thing, because they're not taking everything else for the utilities and things like that. It's not super expensive, right? So then all of a sudden you're like, oh, maybe I can contribute to that one extra thing, so we can get some more dump trucks or street sweeps or whatever the case may be, right? That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, more affordable energy is that Jordan Peterson says that, and then just doing that alone would put a huge dent in solving world hunger. Just that alone.
And it's just never going to happen. That's the crazy thing.
There's too much money wrapped in it.
It's just never going to happen. The privately owned companies are just never they're never going to change that. It's just always going to be the same, right?
It's cruddy because the privately owned companies, like Costco is a great example of this, okay? They sell items cheaper than everybody else, and they do more business and bring in more money than everybody else. Well, how does that work? You're selling it for cheaper. Well, because you have a clientele that comes in that knows exactly what they want, how much of it they want, and they come in and they do the thing and they get out, right? If private companies in the energy industry can provide services to, Extreme Coil Drilling, okay? That's a company that no longer exists, got bought out by Akita, but I used to work for them. The big thing is, the more rigs that you can get sold out, the more oil you're going to drill, the cheaper the gas price goes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The more employees you have, because the cheaper the gas is, the more people are going to buy it, right?
Sure.
It's just available. They're going to go dirt biking,
not
and
necessarily
boats
that people are going to buy it more, but the people that normally can't afford those kind of things are going to start buying it. So you're gaining a whole new customer base by lowering the price of it, because now people that couldn't have access to it, now all of a sudden they're like, oh, that's affordable. Now, like you said, now we can go on these vacations and we can make these trips.
And so you're just going to be selling more of it at a lower price, which over time will be more profit than what you normally would have had.
They call it a tipping point.
The problem is, the government wants that tax, an energy tax. Businesses have been just taxed to death. I was watching a lady on TikTok. She owns a hair salon. She got all of her workers around. She goes, okay, we're going to take a guess at how much I paid in payroll taxes this year. So a company or a person who owns a company that has employees, they have to pay a tax for paying their employees. Stupid. Okay?
Government.
And then the government's going to take tax from that employee for making money. It's
government.
Ridiculous. Anyway, so they're all guessing, and there's 4 employees, maybe 5, super, small local shop. And they're like, okay, so they take the guy, I'm going to guess 10,000. And another one goes, I'm going to guess 8,000. No, 15. $260,000 just to pay your employees is the tax she had to pay.
That's why there's only 2 of us, right, for this business.
Insane.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't even what? Let's just
So the government ruins everything that they touch. Please quit taxing me.
You're already taking tax out of my paycheck, right?
Yeah.
That's why there's taxes on that stuff. Why am I getting taxed again at the end of the year?
And everybody always complains about the minimum wage too. Well, we need a higher minimum wage. I think that if your boss didn't have to pay $260, Mechanics Pride, the place I worked, we had 10 technicians and 2 service writers, and then the owner would work up front. He paid what was it? it was $820,000 a year in taxes.
That's your whole what?
If he had that extra $820,000 a year, he
you
could
guys
increase everybody's
You guys
pay.
be making
Like,
$50 an hour, you know? Like,
Yeah.
you guys be making tons of money,
and I mean,
dude.
the highest paid tech was still making $48 an hour.
Fuck, yeah,
I mean,
dude.
you know, imagine how much more that employer could pay you if he wasn't getting taxed out the ass for owning a business.
It's just never going to happen. That's the sad part. Is like you said, there's too much money tied up in that kind of stuff. Goddamn politics, goddamn government. Let's go.
Me want more pointless social programs. Yummy, yummy, yum.
Okay, I'm calm. Just so we're all on the same page. In the years leading up to the housing market crash, the United States government put pressure on banks to sell homes to people that couldn't afford homes. And in 2008, they all got foreclosed on, aka they got repossessed, and then it crashed the entire economy. And like 6 months later, the United States government's like, brain blast, I know how to fix this, guys. We're going to go to car dealerships and we're going to put pressure on them. We're going to incentivize them. We're going to subsidize it, whatever words you want to use. We're going to convince people that can't afford new cars to buy new cars, and then they're all going to get repossessed.
Oh my God,
it's
dude.
brilliant. I've taken a math class. Two of the same thing cancel each other out. It's going to get us out of this mess. So in conclusion, did Cash for Clunkers save the environment? No, not really. It barely made a noticeable dent, and if anything, it probably hurt it more by destroying all the vehicles. But it did at least save a bunch of American jobs. Granted, it saved more Japanese jobs than it did American jobs. But hey, life is all about the silver linings, right? We did, at a minimum, get to keep the poor people in check because we got to take their money in taxes and then use those taxes to force them to pay $2,000 more for a used car, which back in 2009 was closer to like $3,500, but you know, whatever. Anyways, I'm going to go keep looking for a truck. Thanks for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang out.
You know, and
I legitimately can't even tell anymore if politicians are stupid or evil. It's probably both.
Oh, dude, how long have I been saying that on this channel, dude? All politicians are corrupt in some way. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter if you're a left winger or you're a right winger. It doesn't matter. Politicians in your court, at some level, are corrupt in their own right. And most of them, let's be real honest, most of them are pretty fucking stupid too, because it's like the closing arguments in the debate, like, Kamala's gonna close the border. When I get in office, I'm gonna close the border, and Trump's like, why don't you just do it now?
Yeah,
you can do it right now. Right. Why aren't you doing it? You know, and I don't want to get into politics here, but that's like it's that kind of shit where it's like, well.
The problem with a lot of politicians, and this is the one reason a lot of people love Trump, is he never ran for city council. He was never a mayor anywhere. He was never a senator. He was a real estate agent that got really good at real estate and started a bunch of businesses. Like, he knows how the game is played.
I shouldn't have done this.
And that's why a lot of people like him, because he wasn't a politician first. He was a businessman, an entrepreneur, somebody who knew the risk of dealing in the American economy, which that has its own merits. And this is something my dad has said. My dad's like, listen, Donald Trump says some wild stuff. Sometimes I wish he would just shut his mouth. Okay, like, listen, we know you're smart. Okay, we know that you're more than qualified to speak towards the economy because you play a really huge game in the economy.
At least more than maybe current leaders, you know.
Yeah, I mean, what
had some experience.
What did Joe Biden ever do? Like, start a business? Like,
there's controversies on that because Trump also failed a lot of businesses that he started to. But
that's part of the journey.
We're not here to. I don't like to get into this because I don't want you guys getting in the comments and being like, "Oh, I support Trump. Oh, and now I'm fighting you because of this, that, and the other." We're not. Right. We're not a politics channel. Right. We're not trying to do that. But the Fat Electrician has a great point where it's like, at the end of the day, the government doesn't care about you. They only care about the people at the very top, right? And we're kind of all screwed at the end of it. If you're not in the 1%, and even if you are in the 1%, some of the people that are in the 1%, if you're not in the right circles or you're not talking to the right people, it doesn't matter. You're just a wheel in a cog, or you're just a little pin on a map or something like that. It's nothing.
You know, here's I think the best way it was ever put to me. The best politician that you can potentially have in office and Senate and Congress, as Supreme Court, whatever the case may be, is a politician who, if they weren't a politician, could be just as successful on their own, right?
Adam Calhoun.
So if if Trump wasn't president, he would just go back to real estate. If Kamala wasn't doing her thing in politics, what she'd go to work at? Like, she has no marketable skills.
She'd probably go back to doing law shit, but then again, like, I don't know what her...
Even then, she wasn't, like, if you look at her win-loss records...
I haven't looked at any of that stuff. I mostly shy away from politics because you guys know my opinions on that shit, but...
The point is, would she be just as successful in her old job as she is now?
I don't know, because... I don't know her success rates, but apparently from what I've heard, not great. I don't know.
The fat electrician would be a fantastic president, okay? Because, like, you know, he would... If he wasn't president, he lost the thing. Whatever, dude.
He would have auctioned the cars. What a great idea.
Yeah.
Auction the cars. Well, that's easy. And then everyone wins. Everyone gets a little piece of the pie. You know, like, oh, you get these cars. We don't want these cars at the dealerships anymore, but yet there are still people that can use these cars in their everyday life that can't afford dealership cars. So here's one at a cheaper rate. What a great idea. Nah.
Or at the very least...
Let's put liquid glass in the engine and overheat it and blow it up and then smash it.
Or at the very least, export them to other countries. It's like, you know, those trucks would have been great vehicles for farmers, for, like, you know, like, hey,
for $15,000 for a Toyota truck with 0 miles on it, I would have bought one of those.
Oh, facts.
That's way cheaper than what I paid for my car that's in the parking lot right now. You know, like, and for something with 0 miles on it.
Yeah.
My car had over 100,000 miles on it when I bought it. You know what I mean? And I paid more than that. Like,
yeah, it's crazy, man.
Crazy.
But
yeah.
Yeah, fat electrician for president. Okay, 2025. Let's go.
TFE 2025.
That's
2024. TFE 2024. Yep, we're starting it. You heard it here first. Oh, boy.
Oh, man.
Let's hear from you guys. Let's hear what you think down in the comments. Let us know. We love having conversations with you guys.
Participated in the Cash for Clunkers. Did you get a good deal? Did you feel like you kind of got screwed over?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'd be interested to know.
Yep.
Another thing I thought was interesting is... Did you notice that during COVID, towards the end of the year, right? Because the auto industry was hurting. Nobody was buying cars. Nobody was driving. Oil and gas, like, dude, nobody's buying gas because nobody's driving.
Car lots were empty.
It was crazy.
There were no cars in the car lot. They were just empty.
So they got this genius idea of, we're just going to make it to where if you buy a car and... You know, you get this, you know, you spend this much on the car and, like, your loan is, you know, this term or whatever, you're going to get 0% interest, which sounds like a great idea until everybody went and bought cars that were brand new. They weren't working because of COVID. They weren't making their normal paycheck. They didn't know when they were going to go back to work. They didn't know if their company was going to be around when the whole thing was over.
A lot of them weren't,
and then all those cars got repossessed. I look at... Here's the crazy thing, okay? This person brought a vehicle in for a pre-purchase inspection. He said, it's a 2020, and it's had 3 owners. I'm a little skeptical.
Yeah.
And
I would be skeptical of that. That's
had
weird.
8,000 miles on it, and they're like, I don't get it. And I said, well...
Was it a lease?
It was purchased in Denver, Colorado in 2020, brand new. And then it was just title transfer. Doesn't say that it was sold. Doesn't say that it went to a dealer. I would assume the title transfer was it got repossessed. They didn't pay their bill.
Okay.
Then it got another title transfer when it got sold at a dealership in Denver again. A used car lot.
Huh.
So it changed hands 3 times. It went from... the dealer to the original owner. They couldn't pay it. Changed hands to the repo company. The repo company sold it to the dealer.
A used dealer.
Used car lot. Then the used car lot is now selling it.
Yo.
And so there was nothing wrong with the car. The car was in great shape.
Oh,
I mean, nothing that
barely
I could
touched, I imagine.
Yeah, barely touched.
8,000 miles. That's a brand new car.
Like, so it was just a case of whoever bought it in the first place couldn't because they got scammed into a thing and...
Huh.
Yeah, so be careful out there, okay? If it looks too good to be true, it probably is.
Most of the time it is, yep.
So
rare occasions are exceptions to the rule, but 99% of the time it's not.
Yeah. So anyway, if you guys enjoyed today's episode as much as we did, be sure to leave a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, click the bell, become part of the notification gang. We'll see you guys next time. Bow.
We could continue talking about this.
Car stuff.
The auto industry, the car stuff, forever. Yeah. Like I was going to bring up, after you mentioned that last thing, I was going to bring up the supercar junkyards that are in Dubai.
Yeah.
Because people go to buy these supercars, and then they can't afford the taxes when it comes time to pay taxes. And in Dubai, if you don't pay your taxes, you go to prison.
You go to prison. Yeah.
So they literally
So they
just
just dump
abandon
the car.
them and then
Yeah.
fucking take off from the country.
Yep.
And hopefully they don't get they don't get sent back to their country,
Yeah.
extradited back to Dubai. Hopefully they just don't get found out. And then those supercars just sit. Like, dude, that's crazy.
It's crazy, man.